Rock, you've heard about the foolishness that's been embroiling Dave Chappelle after his recent special on Netflix called The Closer, where he once again went in on the trans community. I won't even say the LGBTQIA community. He went in on the trans community. And I don't know necessarily if I would even call it going in, but I guess we can have that conversation too. Afterwards, he has, of course, gotten a lot of pushback. Critically, people didn't really find it all that amazing, but at the same time, they thought the material was a little bit too edgy for them. It ended up leading to the fact that where trans people that worked at Netflix orchestrated not only a walkout, but also tried to release not redacted, but private business emails and information as well, which I thought was fascinating. But do you think that the pushback that Dave is getting now is warranted? Because to be honest with you, the release of the special was, goddamn, a few weeks now, almost a goddamn month. And I honestly thought the blowback.
It's old as hell.
Yeah, I thought the blowback would have. I thought the fervor around it would have died by now. To be very honest with you, but
it's old to me.
It seemed, I mean, for me too. But every time I turn around, it's still.
And the shit wasn't funny.
Like, you said what?
And the shit wasn't funny. Like,
I haven't seen it.
I think at the end of the day, that's what I was concerned with. And the joint wasn't funny. Like, I went in thinking, okay, this is Dave Chappelle. I'm going to laugh, and there was only a few times I was like, oh.
I was like, oh. Okay. But,
even with some of the trans stuff, I was like, I get it, but it became more social commentary than joke, and I was just like,
and I think the thing that blew my mind is I don't give a fuck about Dave, right? I don't give a fuck about Dave. He's a comedian, he's an entertainer. His politics have no validity on the everyday material changes of Black people in general, right? So I don't
specifically
give a fuck
me or you, right? I dig it.
Yeah, like I don't give a fuck about it. But I think what bothers me is the weight that celebrities carry in this culture now, right? The weight that if they say something in their method of entertaining, how it is viewed either as the gospel truth or heresy. Like it just blows my mind how a comedian who has and whatever you want to say about Dave, but he's a comedian, had the opportunity to do a special, or actually air old material, because he did the same show before that many others have already seen that he just put out on Netflix. Right. But it got the type of fervor that it got. Like he's not a scholar, he's not an academic, he's not a professor, he's not a political activist. He
doesn't create or adjust policy in any way.
He's a Black man in an interracial relationship with a whole bunch of white friends who says Black jokes occasionally, and you motherfuckers allowed him to say some shit, and it took you to a place where you're doing think pieces and all that. And again, I don't have a issue per se with the trans folks at Netflix, deciding to walk out. I feel like if you feel like your job is treating you unfairly and you want them to change, you do what you need to do in order to get them to change. I don't have an issue with that. I may not agree, but I don't take issue with that because I think that's something that people should have the right to do. But I just am blown away at how this commentary was so incredibly divisive, man. Like Black folks spent days and hours arguing back and forth on the validity of what Dave said. Like, this motherfucker was Paul or Jesus. Like, this is, I'm just like, yo, I don't understand. I thought it was whack. I didn't think it was funny. I laughed a couple of times, but I got tired of the turn into the political commentary.
Yeah.
It didn't move me. And I wanted it to be funny. I wanted to laugh. It's Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, that was first and foremost, that's what I wanted from a comedy special. Yeah. But go ahead, Crush.
No, I mean, I did see the segment, and I didn't see where he was going in on that particular community. But yeah, the weight. I mean, celebrity culture like definitely hit a new peak. Celebrity culture hit a new peak of idolatry that I think probably even amazed, had to amaze Dave Chappelle at one point. Like, whoa, are they still talking about this shit? You know, yeah, that's the part that the most that I'm pretty stunned at. You know, that they're still trying to carry this issue forward. You know, they were saying Netflix was going to drop the show, and I was like, no, they're getting all this free marketing. Why would they drop the show? They're saving tons of money. So of course they're not dropping the show. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I'll save it for later. But you know, overall, you know, just this amount of discussion around, you know, a comedian. I remember the different moments that different comedians, you know, made controversial statements, but you know, not to the. But then again, maybe this is all a precursor to this, because for a long time, comedians have felt and have been, for the most part, curtailed in their edginess and, you know, things like that. And except for, you know, Mr. Chappelle, who kind of takes it to the hilt on Netflix. And maybe maybe he stepped on a PC, you know, on some PC toes a little too hard, you know, which is ridiculous, you know. But I don't know. It's just I didn't think. I mean, I knew my man was large, but like this, like it's kind of insane.
I think that he should be able to practice his craft as in whatever form he thinks is best for him, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect his pockets. If he's telling jokes that people like, he's going to get paid. If he's telling jokes that people don't like,
I think there's also, and I agree that you should be able to practice your art, but I don't think you should be able to practice your art without, in a method where you don't think you should be above criticism or critique, though. Right?
No. And I think that's
no. And I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that that's what people use that thought process. Well, he's just practicing his art. He's just a comedian. Just because you're a comedian or an artist or a rapper or a dancer doesn't mean that your art is above critique. Because even though your art is subjective, right, people's opinions are also subjective. Like, it's a dangerous game.
That begs a bigger question.
I mean, I don't think Dave is objecting to any criticism.
I think in many ways he's embracing it.
Yeah,
he is, because he's using it, I think, as a shield or a rallying cry for those people that are talking about PC culture and so on. Yeah. So, but at the same time, I think that begs a bigger question then. When you're going to be having this conversation about critiquing someone's craft, right? Mm-hmm. The best way to affect an artist is whether you indulge or support that art, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't understand the walkout. I'm not saying that these trans employees that walked out and those people that supported them didn't have the right to do that. 100%, I think they have the right to do that. But I think the most effective way to do it would have been just to tell people not to watch the show, because you know Netflix is not going to take it down. But if you rally enough people to say, well, this is not something that's good for our community, and the numbers don't line up in terms of views for the show, at the end of the day, what's going to happen? It's going to Netflix cancels shows that have 3 seasons and have millions and millions of views.
That's the weird.
Every single day with every one of these damn.
That's the weird contradiction.
They put on the damn thing.
That's the weird contradiction about having this controversy in this entertainment sphere. Like the most effective and you know, pure thing you could do would be to ignore the spectacle, but instead you exacerbate it because
you want to be part of the whole.
And behind the scenes, money is churning. Money is turning. For all the fervor, all the chanting, all the protests, money is churning. Money is churning.
But not only that, though, we live in a society where social media and things like I saw clips of the show and his stand-up on social media before I saw it on Netflix.
That's where I saw it.
It was like it's really difficult to say if we stop watching on Netflix, then we won't it will somehow affect. But it's like you still are going to have some sort of effect if it bothers you. I understand that, and again, I don't think, based off of what I've read about the trans folk who actually did the walkout, their demand wasn't just exclusively for Netflix to pull the show, right? Okay. They were intelligent enough to know that Netflix wasn't going to pull the show. but they were also aspirational enough to say that's our motherfucking demands. But I think their larger point that they made, their spokesperson made, was we wanted people to know that we were not in line with Netflix continuing to put the show out, right? It wasn't just simply going out and getting the show removed. It was also letting people know we as trans folk are not in agreement with this particular show. And I think that's one thing that we people who do protests and boycotts, we can actually say we want this huge demand, but at the same time, we want our message to go forth. So if we, even if we don't get our demand met, at least people are aware and are going to be talking about it, i.e. in the black, talking about trans folks actually taking a stand against their particular issue and they're, you know, being offended. So I applaud them for that, but I don't think they went into it thinking like, if 12 motherfuckers walk out, that Netflix all of a sudden gonna pull the motherfucking show.
Yeah, they're gonna fall apart.
Yeah,
they did get a large rally of support during their walkout too. But and all of that seemed very, all the shenanigans that ended up following the walkout seemed very messy as well. But that's a whole nother kettle of fish. I'm going to ask you guys the $1 million question, and then we're going to move on. Do you think that there was some level of validity into what Dave was saying, though, that that no particular group or people, like Elgin said, should be beyond reproach or critique? So if he's going to use trans people in his material, that they necessarily don't have to like it, but shouldn't say that he doesn't have the right to do that, which seems to be what Dave is arguing. Like he shouldn't even be talking about trans people at all, and that on top of talking about trans people, he talks about them in a disparaging, in what they believe is a disparaging way. Do you think that that he has some validity in what he's saying?
I really don't know, man. And I say I don't know because I'm not trans, right? So I can't actually speak to say whether or not they have validity or I don't know. So what I've done is I've listened to my trans brothers and sisters who have either said that they felt some type of way or they said there was validity. I've allowed them to navigate that sphere and have that conversation and not allow my cis heterosexual maleness to black maleness specifically to
blindfold
dominate. So I've been like, yo, I haven't said anything about it. Like, no, they got it. They don't need me.
I think that overall that's an interesting, the whole conversation in itself is extremely interesting because in one pocket, people do expect you to make some sort of lend your voice to it in some capacity, right? That they expect you to be an ally. What does an ally necessarily mean? They need you to voice that. And for me, like you said, I'm not on that side of the fence, so I don't know how to navigate these streams, right? So instead of me lending my voice outside of being empathetic and saying something that may not necessarily be the case, I'd rather be silent, listen, and allow those that are in those spaces to make the comments. But I had one person come out and tell me the other day, was like, nah, we need people like you to talk and to raise your voice against folks like Dave Chappelle. And it seems like going into these spaces now, it's like that's the new quote unquote gotcha question. Like, where do you stand? Do you support Dave Chappelle or do you support the trans community? And I'm like, I mean, I like both of y'all.
People who say that are really being unfair, because most people who are advocates and fighting and allies in the LGBTQ community, they're not looking for people to just align with their beliefs, right? They're not looking for them to just say, you guys are right. They're looking for people to be open to have a discussion, to have their own thoughts developed. They're not looking for just blind robots and blind supporters to come through. They're actually looking for people to come through to develop and grow with that. So this idea that if you're not an ally, that you don't just stand up and support against their foe, that's not being an ally. That's not what an ally is. I can still think what Dave said has some validity and still be an ally towards trans folk, right?
Yeah, some people will tell you that that's not the case.
Well, I know.
I don't know.
And listen,
I don't know if
I think there's a fine balance and a fine line, and I think
a little too
what
fine.
Dave did do was he allowed, or hopefully does, he propels these conversations into more barbershops, into more predominantly Black spaces, and we begin to address some of the things that he mentioned, and we allow our trans brothers and sisters to come in and have that same dialogue with us, because there is a level of like, oh my God, trans folks are different. And there's other pejoratives that people use. I just think I think it's a great, instead of attacking Dave, like we could be using this moment to have a broader conversation.
Having productive conversations. Yeah, I can dig it. I can dig it.